everyone. My name is Paula Watkins, and I'm the head of school here at Holy Trinity's Clifton campus. Holy Trinity Clifton School and this beautiful Eiffel Theater this building has been around for almost 100 years, and many a student have performed on the stage. It has been the venue for performances for a very, very long time. We are an Archdiocesan parochial K-8 elementary school that is the second campus to Holy Trinity, which is over in St. Matthew's, Holy Trinity Parish. And we are currently serving 54 children with language-based learning differences. So the majority of my students have a diagnosis of dyslexia. We are implementing a research-based program called Gordon-Dillingham to serve their learning needs. We offer speech therapy, we offer occupational therapy, and after-school enrichment programs and many sports programs as well. Holy Trinity began leasing this building in 2018. The first renovations were to the classrooms that hopefully as you walked in you were able to see. And we opened the doors to the school in 2019. We've been in operation for 3 years, and this summer we will start the second phase of our renovation to this beautiful theater. Don't be concerned, of course. We are preserving the beauty and the charm, but just offering a bit of a facelift. We appreciate the opportunity to host our District 9 friends for this forum. As a matter of housekeeping, you probably want to know where the restrooms are. The men's restroom is to my right, women's to my left. If you need an accessible bathroom, you will go straight down the hallway to the elevator, and they are on the bottom floor. And I can direct you if needed. I will now turn the mic over to Mr. Mark Gatt, Frankford Avenue Business Association President and your moderator for the evening.
Thank you, Paula. We really appreciate the use of the facilities here today. I'd like to thank the other sponsors, Clifton Community Council, Clifton Heights Community Council, and the Irish Hill Neighborhood Association. For those of you that are wondering, there are other neighborhoods in the district, such as Crescent Hill and part of St. Matthew's. Due to the short time period that was put together, all the neighborhoods were not able to be involved. But don't take that as any kind of slight or anything like that. It was just a matter of time. So thank you very much to them. And before we get started, I would like to, for all of us, to give a big round of applause to Bill Hollander, who is the current District 9. He's done a great job, and it's going to be hard shoes for these folks to fill, but I'm sure they will be able to. And I'd also like to thank Kyle Etheridge, who's Bill's assistant, and I will say this, I think, for practically everyone in there. I hope she stays because she's fabulous. And also thanks to Tara Bassett, who is recording tonight. We'd also ask, hopefully no one else is live streaming because we have a limited bandwidth. So if you are, we ask you just not to if you can, because she will be doing it, and it's live streaming on her page as well as Councilman Hollander's Facebook page, and then it'll be available afterwards. As we mentioned, it's a little bit difficult right now because District 9 had changed, and it really, particularly for Clifton Heights, that's really messed up that community. There are 2 different districts now. So it's a little bit difficult for people, but I'm sure they'll figure out how to handle that. What to take, how the forum will be structured tonight. I will read 2 questions from one of the sponsoring neighborhoods. Each candidate will have 4 minutes to respond to both questions. So during that 4 minutes, you can spend 2 minutes on each question, or 1 on one, 3 on the other, however you care to handle that. When all 6 of the candidates have then completed that round, we'll go to the next set of questions, handle those, and so forth. Candidates, you see Phil right here, wave your hand, Phil. Phil is going to be your best friend. He has cards up there, when he holds up the blue one, it's kind of hard to see, that says 1 minute. And when he holds up the yellow, it's kind of like a stop sign light, that means you got 30 seconds. When he holds up the red, that means stop. If you don't do it immediately, what you do, Bill, he's going to ring that countdown. Okay? You don't want to hear the countdown. All right, audience members, you were given postcards when you came in. If you have questions that you would like to have asked at the end of our program, we have just 2 hours to be here, so we'll take as many questions as we can. Please write that down and bring it up to the front here, and someone will be there to gather those, and then we'll ask those. If anybody here needs help with writing your question, also come forward and somebody will help you write that question as well. So thank you very much on that. For sake of time, I'm just going to introduce the candidates by name and let them wave at you so you see who they are. I don't know about you, I did not know all the candidates beforehand, but we'll start over here with Jack Andrews. Wait, that's Jack, yay. And Mike Brooks, Allison Broxy Elder, Jim Mims, Andrew Owen, and Wynn Simpson. And also, Alexandria Martindale regretfully could not be here tonight. She was invited and I really wanted to, but she was not able to be here. So she will not be here this evening. So, without further ado, we'll get started. So, we're going to start, I'm going to read, there's a statement along with each of the questions. I'll read both of those. And then when I'm done, we will start down at the end down here, and down here, we'll just work our way down. And if the candidates would just get up to the mic, and we'll let you know if you need to adjust the mic. Hopefully it'll be okay, but we might need to adjust it. So the first set of questions, this is from the Clifton Community Council. Parking on Frankford Avenue and residential streets is an ongoing concern. What will you do to address the parking problem? The second statement and question. District 9 has a large population of visually impaired residents as well as many residents who use a wheelchair. What will you do to improve the lives of visually impaired and physically challenged residents in District 9? Candidates.
I think this is an example of what is known as, can everybody hear me?
Please say your name so we know.
I will. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is an example of alphabetical advantage or disadvantage, depending on how you want to look at it. My name is Jack Andrews. And the first question is about parking. And I thought, as I have thought before in these types of forums, that this is something that I should be asking what your ideas of how to improve parking are, rather than me trying to wing it. But it crossed my mind that you should know a little bit about me. I'm a husband and a father, a grandfather, and a lawyer, and I have some experience writing laws. And when it comes to the parking issue, the only thing that crosses my mind is that I support increased public transportation, including light rail, and perhaps, to borrow a suggestion from one of my colleagues here, I believe, Wynn Simpson, that we need to consider as a district asking the Metro Council to support a trolley service up and down Frankford Avenue, particularly on weekends, or at least starting on weekends. And one of the other thoughts I had was in terms of parking and the utilization of the Frankford Avenue corridor specifically, is the notion of occasionally or on weekends turning Frankford Avenue into a pedestrian-only venue for several blocks, depending on what the community wants to do. And that is something obviously that will take considerable planning. But if the community decided that they wanted to try something like that, as a Metro Council member, I would pledge to you that I would definitely support any effort by the city government to support that kind of effort. Oh, and then the next question, very important. What do you, or how can a Metro Council member, or me, as if I were elected, improve the lives of visually impaired and physically challenged residents in District 9? Part of my experience is I was counsel to the United States Senate Committee on Labor and Human Resources Subcommittee on Handicapping. And I drafted, among other bills, I drafted the Developmentally Disabled Assistance and Bill of Rights Act. I helped draft the Handicapped Education of All Handicapped Children Act, the Rehab Act. So I have considerable experience at turning platitudes into policy that work for people, including those with disabilities. And I would pledge that as your Metro Council member, if elected, you can count on my support to translate your needs into appropriate laws. Thank you very much.
Hello, good evening. I'm Mike Brooks. I want to thank our host here tonight, as well as our moderator. This is an exciting event. I'm really glad we came together. I'm grateful to all of you for showing your civic pride by coming out tonight to hear a little bit about who is going to be your next Metro Council person. I'm going to endeavor to be concise tonight, which is not always one of my strong suits. But I did want to carve off just a moment here at the top to tell you a little bit about me. I've lived here in Louisville for 20 years, the last 15 of them here in the 9th District. I lived in Clifton for years, and then in Clifton Heights, and now in Crescent Hill, where I'm serving my 3rd term as president of the Crescent Hill Community Council. I'm running on key values of equity, accessibility, and sustainability. Equity because we live in an unequal society and a city, a segregated city. We have a lot of work to do to make sure that we're supporting all of our neighbors. Accessibility because we live in one of the best clusters of neighborhoods in the whole city, but it can still be hard to get around, especially for our neighbors who are on foot or on a bike or who have a disability of some kind. And sustainability because we as a city have to get serious about climate and about our urban heat island effect. So there's the hits right at the top. What will I do to address the parking problem? Well, so begins what could be a rough run for me tonight, because I'm going to tell you some things that you may not like. You may not want to hear, but I feel like we owe each other the truth, at least as we understand it. And so the truth as I understand it is that we need to, in part, embrace the congestion that we have on Frankford Avenue, because it's a sign that what we're doing is working. People want to be here. And it took us 20 years to grow into this problem. From, those of you who lived on Clifton, in Clifton and along Frankford Avenue 20 years ago, you'll know how much of a change there has been, thanks to the great businesses of the Frankford Avenue corridor and the neighborhood associations who have supported them throughout. So when I say embrace the congestion, part of what we need to do is place a price on it. Because right now, we have a massive free parking up and down Frankford Avenue. It's free surface parking both in front of and often behind the businesses that line the road. And we just can't afford to do that anymore. It's become a scarcity issue, as you know, that's why we're even talking about it here right now. And so the first thing that I would recommend doing is putting in parking meters and setting them at prohibitive prices, frankly, because we can not only generate a little bit of revenue, but we'll start to bake in that full price of having automobiles taking up this valuable public space that we could be doing other things with. And that actually starts to segue into the second question. What will we do to improve the lives of visually impaired and physically challenged residents here in District 9? Oh, God.
Concise.
So on the 20th, we all went on a walk with Dirk Down from the city and a couple of his employees, and also with Barb Henning, who was a visually impaired member of the Clifton community. And we learned a great deal that day about the challenges that these folks encounter just trying to go through their everyday lives. And so what I learned from that is we need more frequent audits of our accessibility infrastructure. We need to listen to the people who need that infrastructure and get the feedback from them on how best we can support them. But I want us to have the best and safest and most contiguous sidewalks throughout the district, or throughout the city rather, and I intend to fund it appropriately. And this will dovetail later, we'll come back to it when we talk about the pedestrian and bike access committee. Thank you very much.
Hello, hey y'all. I'm Allison Broxy Elder. I'm a resident of Crescent Hill. I'm a native of Louisville. I grew up in St. Matthews. And the last time I was on this stage, I was performing Godspell. So lucky you, you don't have to hear me sing tonight. I'm really excited to be here. What can we do to address the parking problems on Frankford Avenue? I think we can improve the parking situation by incentivizing people to ride bikes and walk along Frankford Avenue and cut down on car traffic. So we need to improve pedestrian access across the board in District 9, not just along Frankford Avenue, but also all the way up to Shelbyville Road. This district now extends past Hubbard's Lane at this point in time. So we need to work together with the City of St. Matthews, with Metro government, and we need to hold the Transportation Cabinet accountable when it comes to maintaining our roadways. I am also very supportive of improving our public transportation infrastructure, so TARP specifically. We need to be building, I'm supportive of light rail as well, but let's start with what we have first and improve it so that people actually want to ride and take TARP. I think that there are parts of Clifton that could be good candidates for residential parking permits, which we have in other sections. There are many cities that have residential parking permits, so perhaps that is something we could look into. But I really think it's all about incentivizing people to walk and ride bikes more. And we do that by improving the sidewalks, by building a parking protected bike lane along Frankford Avenue, and slowing down the traffic so that people feel safe and comfortable walking in our neighborhoods. We need a new approach to encourage more environmentally friendly and cost-effective travel. We can't keep building like we're always going to be a single passenger vehicle country. It's detrimental to our environment. It's not the type of neighborhoods that people want to live in anymore. It's not the future. So what can we do to improve the lives of our visually impaired and physically challenged residents in District 9? Like I said, we need to be more proactive with the Transportation Cabinet. I couldn't agree with Mike more about the audit situation of our sidewalks. D9 is very, very well maintained. We have Councilman Hollander to thank for prioritizing that. But I think we could also be pushing the state to slow down Frankford Avenue. So I'm for lowering the speed limit from 35 to 25. I can say that right now. We speed kills, and it's already claimed 2 pedestrian lives in the past week in Louisville. So we really need to slow down the traffic there, and lowering the speed limit helps that. We are building more sidewalks throughout the district. We need to complete those projects and build more. And we need to look at the administration of TARP 3. That's a service that's provided to our physically challenged residents and visually impaired residents. And it's been mismanaged, frankly, for almost 20 years. I know there's been times where people have missed doctor's appointments, they can't get anyone to call them back, they can't get people to pick up. I think we need to do an audit of TARP 3 to improve that service for our residents there. And we need to be intentional about inclusivity. So how are we contacting our neighbors about changes? Are we giving them the opportunity to offer feedback and including their perspectives? Are we doing something about it when they give us that feedback? I pledge that if I'm elected to Metro Council, everyone will have a seat at the table in terms of building our community, regardless of their physical status or impairment, they're able-bodied or not. Thank you very much.
Okay, Jim Mims, lots of good input right now. Thank you, fellow candidates, for helping me kind of load the barrel as to what my responsibility. First of all, the parking is kind of a two-edged sword. It means that we have had an immense amount of success on Frankford Avenue in terms of building this as a major entertainment commercial, or not major, but an entertainment core where people want to go. And I guess have the advantage of being older and remembering what it was like when Bardstown Road was experiencing the same sort of thing. And Alex kind of touched on this a little bit at the last forum that we were at in terms of maybe a public-private partnership. And being a Republican, I'm sure she wouldn't imply a taxi district, nor would I be. But I do remember that Tommy O'Shea at that time, and actually Andrew's dad was involved in that. They actually started, making sure that people were moving their cars not over parking for an extended period of time. The other ideas relative to making this a more pedestrian-friendly environment is plays in part and parcel to what needs to be done. I know Katie and I, many times we live way over the Broxy, that we walk up to Frankford Avenue because it's just more convenient. And when you have an attractive area such as Frankford Avenue, people find a way, just like they do on Bardstown Road. And that's the nature of urban parking. We have a lot of cases that come before us at the Planning Commission where you're scratching your head and you're saying, how are they going to have adequate parking? But in an urban environment, figure it out. And they select a different mode. Obviously, better transit service. Unlike a lot of other people, I don't think TARC is getting it done. With the right machines and trying to maintain the 10-minute, 15-minute cycle time. It's just not as up to par as it needs to be. All of us went on the tour of the public infrastructure last Tuesday, and it's eye-opening. I mean, and no pun intended, but it was eye-opening for those that certainly are not visually impaired, and just how much investment needs to be done to make the public realm more usable for everybody, particularly those that have challenges. And so I think the answer there is we have to have a bigger seat at KIPA, the MPO, the Public Planning Organization. That is where all the federal funds are funneled through. And it's imperative that we come together with a consensus. Larry Cheney, one of the former executive directors at KIPA, says the one thing the Metro does not do is come in with a consensus of requests. And we have to do a better job at reaching out and getting our fair share, whether it be applied to Frankford Avenue or someplace other. But there is a need to be more involved in that doling of funds. Okay, 10 seconds is good.
Hello, I'm Andrew Bowen. I hope at this point in the campaign I don't have to tell you the basics about myself. I have been sending a number of mailers that I hope you guys have gotten. I do want to start by telling you a couple of things that you may not know about me at this point. The first is that I was endorsed by CFAIR, which is the Political Action Committee for Fairness, and I'm particularly proud of that because that is an organization that is based in the 9th District, and they've been here for 30 years, and they do incredible work. And for them to endorse me was, I take great pride in that, and I wanted to make sure you guys knew that. We also found out today that Allison and I were endorsed by the local chapter of the Sierra Club. We were co-endorsed, so I wanted to. Did you not know
I
this?
didn't hear it.
Oh, well, so we received a co-endorsement from the Sierra Club, which I'm also very proud of. But because the fairness is located in the 9th, that's the one that I'm really, really proud of. So let me just quickly. My campaign is focused on 3 things. Social justice, number 1, repairing the relationship between LMPD and the community, which is a two-way street, number 2, and investing in public infrastructure and public art. The third part of that is a lot of what we're going to be talking about tonight. I have an urban planning background, and so I think we can improve neighborhoods and cities by changing and improving the built environment. And so that's why I think we should be investing in the public infrastructure. Councilman Hollander has done a really good job focusing on that, but as we could all see when we took our walk last week, there's still a lot of work left to do. And investing in that public infrastructure, I also see that as an investment in the local shops and businesses, because the more we invest in curbs and sidewalks and signage and benches and public art, the more people will want to be out on the street, walking up and down, ducking their heads inside a shop, spending money. So it's an investment in public infrastructure, but also an investment in our local shops and businesses. Okay, parking, quickly. I think there are a couple of pretty simple solutions that we can look at. Number 1, if you go up and down Frankford Avenue, we have the little painted keys on the side of the road. And it's amazing how well those things work. And what it does is it shows you where you're supposed to be at the front and back, and you put your car right in the middle. And what that does is it creates much more efficiency for your on-street parking. I think we should look at the side streets that are, say, 1 block off of Frankford Avenue and say, maybe as a street, we should talk to the neighbors and say, would you like to put those little keys on your street to make your parking situation in front of your house more efficient? I think it's something we should look at. Number 2, I think there's a ton of opportunity to perhaps facilitate the relationship between businesses and churches and other organizations that have a lot of surface parking, but they don't use it at night. I mean, I know in some cases, Volare does a valet parking, but it seems like there ought to be a way where we can help facilitate a relationship where a business that does business at night is getting more access to the parking, people that don't use it during the day. I'll talk a little bit more about the visually impaired and public infrastructure as we go. I don't have a whole lot of time left, but I'll come back to that later on. Thanks.
Good evening. I've lived in Louisville just about my whole life, except 10 years in Columbus and 10 years in Nashville, so I've been all over it. Frankford Avenue. Frankford Avenue is a right-of-way. It's a space for every citizen, not just big cars, big people, diesel vehicles, etc. We need to re-envision the whole idea of what that right-of-way is all about. Let's stop with these halfway measures. Why don't I go downtown Louisville? I don't know about you guys, but it's because of the parking meters. I don't want parking meters. That's not an answer. Forget it. The other thing I'm afraid of is one-way streets. I don't know how many of you have been caught up in that. As far as access for handicapped people, blind people, anyone that can't walk or get around, I will pledge to build and get federal funds. In fact, President Joe Biden just today pledged $3.1 billion to make electric batteries in the United States. That's a step forward. I will pledge to run a fiber optic cable right down the middle of Frankford Avenue. It'll be quick, it'll be easy, it will be a guidance cable for the light cable cars, for fiber optic cable cars. This is happening, people. It's going to be here. There will be a system that runs from Melwood Arts Center all the way to Oxmoor Mall. You will be able to come to Frankford Avenue, which will be the center of all of this, and get a car, a cable car, within 10 minutes. They will be small, they will be big enough for a number of people, but smaller than the behemoths that we have today. So that's my answer to those two questions. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone for your answers here. I do want to, while I'm, as the president of Frankford Avenue Business Association, I'd love to hear all the talk about Frankford Avenue. I do want to remind you that a lot of the district is not on Frankford Avenue, and I think you will get a little bit of that from some of the other questions about how are you going to make sure to Irish Hill, Clifton Heights, which go on Brownsboro Road, because your district goes into St. Matthews, and Irish Hill. None of those things are on, most of it are on Frankford Avenue, so please keep that in mind as you're answering the other questions. Thank you. Okay, the next questions come from the Clifton Heights Community Council. And the first one, Clifton Heights is again divided between two Metro Council districts, District 4 and District 9. This fact is coupled with the traditionally smaller status of our neighborhood, which hasn't been mentioned yet. So I'll just throw that in there for Clifton Heights. How might you effectively work with Councilman Ja'Cory Arthur, who is the current Metro District 9 and will be continuing, and with the Clifton Heights Community Council for a larger good for our neighborhood? The second, Clifton Heights Community Council recognizes its membership in the neighborhood's pedestrian and bicycle accessibility committees, 5 neighborhood councils, as an extremely important asset. Given that importance, will you pledge to regularly work with and for this committee promoting the equitable status of the Clifton Heights neighborhood? So we'll start at this other end and let Wynn come back up and start us off, and we'll just work down the road.
I'll be short and quick with this answer as well. I had the opportunity to meet Ja'Cory the other night at a Clifton Heights event. He seems communicative. He seems honorable, well-spoken. And what I would pledge to you, and I think all of us probably would, is I would, because of the way that district has been shuffled back and forth, I would go immediately contact Ja'Cory and say, let's meet once. Let's don't meet. Let's have lunch. Let's sit and talk about what's going on in that little piece of your district that used to be in District 9. And have the ideas always constantly on our minds so that those citizens don't get forgotten. That's essential to our way of life. Regarding the bicycles, I used to be a bicyclist in my younger days, and as most recently as 3 or 4 years ago. And I always never liked bicycles on the sidewalk. In fact, if you go to any kind of bicycle education program, you're not supposed to ride a bicycle on the sidewalk, ever. We simply need signs that say no bicycles on the sidewalk. Citizens do it because they just don't know the etiquette and the safety aspects of riding a bike along with pedestrians. So we need to do a better job of educating everyone about the proper use of those, as well as the scooters. The scooters is a brand new technology, and they're just riding everywhere. And I almost got run over by one time. They go fast, and that scares me. So I will bring those kind of ideas to your districts. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to pick up a little bit where I left off previously about public infrastructure and the visually impaired. Most of you, I'm sure, know that Clifton in particular has one of the largest populations of visually impaired people in the country, and they're a critical component of our neighborhood. And I was actually thinking about them, and this right here is a Braille campaign piece that I had printed in Braille. And I know not everyone who's visually impaired can read Braille, but I did this because I wanted to make sure that whenever I was out knocking on doors and whenever I saw someone, that if there was someone who was visually impaired and could read Braille, that I had one. And I do have a few up here. If anybody can read Braille, I'd be happy to give you one. So that's one thing. And then one of my cards was speaking about public spaces and public infrastructure. So those two things that I've been proactively thinking about. So one of the things about the PED and BITE committee is they have some visually impaired people on that committee, and so they have been laser focused not only on public infrastructure improvements for people who can see, but also visually impaired people. And so I think working with them, continuing the good work with them, with that committee, on making sure that all of the public infrastructure is able to be used by everyone will be a critical component moving forward for the next council person. And as far as working with Ja'Cory Arthur, I have been telling anyone that will listen that I am a solutions-oriented person and a bridge builder. I'm not a grandstander and I'm not a rhetorical bomb thrower, and if you're looking for that kind of person to represent you, I'm not your guy. And so as it relates to working with Ja'Cory or in the 4th, or Paul McCraney in the 7th, who's also on our boundary, or Brent Atkinson in the 26th, or with Council President David James, who I have a very good relationship with from my time living in Louisville. I'm going to be looking for solutions, working with anybody who's interested in helping this community heal and helping move us forward. So I don't see that working with having the 4th, having Clifton Heights split between 2 districts, I kind of see it as a little bit of an opportunity for the people in Clifton Heights. You've got 2 places now where you can go and get your issues heard. So I don't see that being an issue. And absolutely, again, working with that BITE and PED committee, I'm absolutely committed to doing that, and I think it's critical going forward. Thank you.
Well, these are great questions. One I was reading in preparation for this evening about the change in the Metro Council, I got to thinking, gosh, we're not building walls here, to separate districts. And it's not like we want to enclose ourselves in one district and keep others out of our district. And really, my thinking is that this ought to be one big round table where everyone can get a seat at the table. Whether you're in District 4 or District 9 or District 20, any of all our districts. And Metro Louisville is one community. We just happen to live in a portion of it. So to kind of follow up on what Andrew was saying is that we all need to have a seat at the table. And we ought to be seeing ourselves not as a dividing line between 4 and 9, but as a table where we can all convene and solve our mutual concerns. We're at a very interesting time where planners, landscape architects like myself, are seeing a great interest in reallocation of the roadway, both the pavement and the right of way. And not to always reflect on another community that has a better idea, but I sort of don't mind stealing daughter lives down in Nashville. She was involved in a roadway reallocation plan for our street in front of her home, Belmont. And it's amazing what that does in terms of narrowing the pavement, reallocating space for bikers and pedestrians, getting this right between the separation of the sidewalk or the bicycles or can't bike, right? Back the final one, but having a dedicated lane to bikers, and it's so it's vitally important to get this right. And this is a subject that is critically important for me, being a landscape architect and involved of projects that is something we have to get commitment to getting relatively simple.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and start with the split district. So, Clifton Heights, beautiful community. It's very unique. I mean, it's up there on the, they, don't call it heights or nothing. It's just, everybody does that. And the needs of its residents are very unique, and they're no different regardless of which district you live in. I've worked with Councilman Harper previously doing fundraising for Public Art. And my job was to the work relationship. When we went to the Community Council meeting, we were all talking about the race and Councilman Harper said money for elected office is like playing a basketball game, you go to the school run until it's over. So, share that with you guys. That is certainly been the experience in this race so far. But really, I think honestly, keeping the lines of communication open, regardless of who is elected, is key for Clifton Heights. The community council there is very active, and I encourage them to continue to show up and call their council members now, because elections have them too. So, like Gary said, go to the project. That's wonderful. We're going to build a better community by working together in concert with one another, regardless of district lines. And, that's what 9 with 7 with 4 with 26, all of them. So, there's real opportunity there. In terms of pedestrian bike accessibility committees, council, I'm going to take some issue with your commentary about bicycles on the sidewalks. There's a reason people ride bicycles on the sidewalks, and